Episode 117 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today is as I'm filming, the 26th of February 2022. For those of you who are watching it more or less now, live this year, you'll know that, was it 4 days ago, the war between Russia and Ukraine started. For those of you watching this episode, maybe 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now. Okay, this is what's going on. This is 4 days after the operations started, shall we say? For this episode, I'm going to dispense with the sort of with the jest and the frivolous comments. I don't think it's very appropriate for this episode. It's all very sad. Nevertheless, I've decided that the statement I'm going to do today, I'm going to be covering Putin's statement that he gave to the nation on the 21st of February, just was it a day before he launched the invasion, and it's basically a 1 hour statement he gave, and he goes into a lot of the history of the situation in Ukraine and the geopolitical background. So look, the fact I'm doing his statement, I'm staying out of this. I'm neutral. I'm not taking any sides here. But as interpreters, the fact is that this conflict, or certainly the aftermath of this conflict, is going to be felt for years to come, I suspect, maybe even longer, decades, I don't know. And there's no getting away from it that what's going on there now is going to feature in a big way in statements given at the political level, the geopolitical level, international organizations. And so if we're working with from Russian into English or vice versa, you're going to need to know what Putin's position is, because what Putin says, often it tends to trickle down into the statements of people further down the chain of command, the foreign ministers, down to diplomats and so on. So that's just the way it is. So it's better to be, for our work, it's best to be familiar with what's going to be discussed. Now, I have actually done a statement by Putin before, so it's actually myself interpreting this, okay? So I'm going to be basically dissecting my own work. So like I said, I've done this before, funnily enough, Putin on Ukraine, in one of the first 10 episodes of the Interpretation Station. So I'm going to put a link to it here, or is it here? I don't know. It was 2 parts. I split it up into 2 parts. So you can go and watch that one as well to give you further knowledge. Also, in the first episode, I actually give quite a bit of historical background to the conflict. On that first episode, what I've done, okay, so I give some background, some history as I sort of what I could find from my own knowledge stuff I'd read and so on. So one of my colleagues actually provided me with quite a bit of feedback on one of those episodes, a lot of the historical facts. So there were certain things that in that first episode that I did, that now it's about a year ago, that I was maybe mistaken on. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to include, he wrote me basically a couple of sheets on a whole file, just picking out exactly some just corrections, fine tuning certain things, shall we say, that I said. So I think from the point of, in terms of just accuracy, I think it's good to have those comments of his that he gives, because anything that I may have said, I don't know, I didn't deliberately make any mistakes. So I think that's a good way of balancing out anything that I might wrongly have stated that first time. So look, it's myself doing Putin. As usual, I'm going to leave you the link to the original statement together with the whole transcript. It's tough. Some of it's really tough. Okay, I did about 20 minutes of it, 25 minutes of it. I'm only going to be breaking down the first 10 or 12 minutes or so. I'll leave the full 20 minutes that I did of the recording as well, so you can compare and contrast. Again, I suggest, very much advise you to try the text yourself, to try interpreting him yourself, record yourself, and again, as usual, and then come back afterwards and watch the show and compare what you did with what I did, and with my own tips, with my own self-critique that I'm going to be doing. So without any further ado, we'll see what I said. So as I say, this was the statement on the 21st of February, 2022. This is what you'll now see. I recorded myself doing the statement yesterday, so I'm going to have magically changed T-shirt in the video. So this was my performance. Okay, so let's get this underway then, eh? So this is Putin speaking on the 21st of January, or 21st of February. So let's see how I broke this down. All right.
Уважаемые граждане России,
Distinguished citizens of Russia,
дорогие друзья,
dear friends,
тема моего выступления
theme of my
события на
statement
Украине.
are events in Ukraine.
Почему это так важно для нас,
Why is that
для
so
России?
important for us, for Russia?
Конечно, мое обращение
Of
адресовано
course, my
и нашим
statement also is
соотечественникам
addressed to
на
our
Украине.
fellow countrymen in Ukraine. Okay, so pretty straightforward start. I did think when you said выступление, I thought, should I say speech? Maybe the theme of my address, but I just played it safe, and I went with statement. You can't go wrong with statement, really. And also, okay, Соотечественникам. I was thinking for a moment you might detect on the original. Could I think of a better? I wasn't certain initially. I thought I wasn't 100% certain initially who he was addressing. Then I just played safe. It's Соотечественники. It's fellow countrymen. What's another alternative? You could say compatriot. Okay, that took me a while to think of that. Соотечественник, so fellow countryman or compatriot.
Говорить придется обстоятельно
We're going to have to talk
и подробно.
In detail and substantively. It's a very important topic. Обстоятельно. So notice what I did there. So you got two adjectives here. Придется обстоятельно и подробно. And I was looking for something really good to do with обстоятельно. So, but while I was thinking about it, I just said, okay, подробно, in detail. I said, and then I couldn't think of anything that brilliant. So then I just said substantively. So you can see, you can do that. You can switch adjectives around. I said this is a very important issue. Maybe I should have said it's a very serious issue. No big deal. Situation in the Donbass has again become critical. Okay, so again, here I didn't, they like the saying this in Russian, приобрести, whatever it is, характер, острый характер, literally has acquired a critical character. But again, that doesn't sound like very good English. So sometimes, I just put it in, I just made them adjectives, has become critical, острый. Maybe a better. I said acute, which is literally, the word острый. Yeah, you talk about acute problems. Maybe a better alternative might have been severe. Maybe in English we'd say has reached breaking point. But again, if you didn't have the text in front of you, you'd be doing really well to come up with that on the spot. Today, I'm addressing you directly, not just to assess events, but to inform you on what decisions have been taken and possible further steps in that direction. Okay, addressing you directly. Оценку, data оценку, to assess. That's what I always think is the safest thing to do with оценить, оценка. Better than evaluate, I would say. Also notice how происходящему, so I just turn that into events. So, literally what is happening, which are events. So, that's That's again perfectly legitimate thing to do. Проинформировать вас о принимаемых решениях. I guess literally it's on what decisions are being taken, right? Принимаемые it's a present gerund. I think I said what decisions have been taken. Tiny little error, but not important at all, I don't think. And further steps in that direction.
Еще раз подчеркну,
Once
что
more,
Украина
I
для нас
repeat,
это
for
не
us,
просто соседняя
Ukraine
страна.
is not just a
Это
neighboring
неотъемлемая
country,
часть
but an
нашей
integral
собственной
part of our
истории,
own
культуры,
history,
духовного пространства.
culture,
Это наши
spiritual
товарищи,
space.
близкие.
One small, again, very micro error. Еще раз подчеркну. So that is the future, technically, that Putin's using. So, technically it would be maybe, once again, I will stress. But again, I don't think it's important here whether you say I will stress or I stress. It's all the same, really. Okay, Ukraine's not just a neighboring country. It's an integral part of our own history, culture. And then I did sort of waver for a minute, духовного пространства. So I just basically rendered it sort of word for word, part of our spiritual space. I have noticed the Russians talk about the idea of space, in the CI, they talk about, the CIS space. At least when we interpret from Russian, when they talk about this пространство, it's a word they use a lot. I tend to just go with space, and I think it's fine to do that. And again, with the Russians, what's often so very important is if the minion in, say, meetings at the UN, if he's fine with it, and I think your average Russian diplomatic minion would be fine with it. So they're your main client when it comes to sort of conference interpreting. As I've said many times before, with other languages, you're usually trying to please the people listening to the interpretation who don't know Russian. But really, when with Russian, there's so much pressure on you from the minion, from the guys the Russians who are tracking your interpretation, that you really want to effectively, they're the guys who you want to please first and foremost. They are our friends, our loved ones.
Не только коллеги,
They include
друзья,
not just
бывшие
colleagues and
сослуживцы,
friends,
но и
former
родственники,
ex-servicemen,
люди, связанные с
relatives,
нами кровными,
people
семейными
with
узами.
blood ties, with family ties. Okay, a tovarish. I mean, I guess the classic word for tovarish is comrade. I think I just went with maybe that would have been better. I don't know if I went with friends, loved ones. Sredi katorich. So often when I hear sredi katorich, I'll often just turn that into they include. Okay, so I started a new sentence here. I said they are friends, our loved ones. They include not just colleagues. Okay, бывшие сослуживцы. I guess you could say. I said fellow servicemen. Okay, bivshia is ex-serviceman. Again, tiny difference in meaning. Not, I don't think, important enough for it to matter. And I turned, санами, связаны с нами кровными семейными узами. I guess literally tied to us through with blood and family ties. I just slightly paraphrased it.
Издавна жители юго-западных исторических древнерусских земель называли себя русскими и православными.
Ukraine have called themselves Russians and Orthodox. Now, I made a slight mistake here. This was a slight contresens, I guess. So I was thinking here, obviously all the or most of the trouble in Ukraine is happening in the southeast of the country, and so I just missed. He suddenly speaks a bit quicker there, so I just went for a guess. He's going to be talking about the southeast. I didn't, but I mean, you can see here from the transcript, it was actually the southwest, or исторических древнерусских земель, maybe of historic, ancient Russian lands. I think I just said historic Russian lands. Again, it's fine. They called themselves Russians and Orthodox. So, technically there was a slight error. Probably wouldn't have been pulled up for that, though.
It wasn't till the 17th century when part of those territories acceded to the Russian state and afterwards.
That's all good there. Vassayedinilas. I guess when a smaller territory joins to a bigger territory, they accede to, okay? I guess that's what happened to Crimea. Crimea acceded to the Russian Federation. I guess when the bigger territory helps itself to the smaller territory, that's more annexing.
Нам кажется, что в принципе мы все об этом знаем.
We all know
что речь идет об общеизвестных фактах.
Universally known fact.
Вместе с тем.
Just a quick, общеизвестный. I tend to, when I hear that общепризнатые, they talk about общепризнатые нормы, I tend to go with universal norms. Общепризнанные нормы, universally recognized norms. So that was my immediate reaction there when I heard him say общеизвестных фактов, so universally known facts.
Для понимания того, что же все-таки сегодня происходит, для объяснения мотивов действий России и тех целей, которые мы перед собой ставим, нужно хотя бы несколько слов сказать об истории вопроса. Итак, начну.
So just a small thing here, I missed this, the bit тех целей, которые мы перед собой ставим. I just took it was a judgment call, I said I had the тех целей, those goals, or our goals. I felt that I wasn't going to lose much by leaving out that we've set ourselves, they're still our goals. So rather than try and get that, and then lose the bit. Нужно хотя бы несколько слов сказать об истории вопрос. I decided I thought that was important to try and get that part of it in. So
I'll begin by saying that modern day Ukraine was fully created by Russia, more specifically Bolshevik communist Russia.
Целиком и полностью. So I was trying to think as I was working, can I think of two, is there a similar phrase in English? I mean, obviously I got the fully, so I just left. It didn't come to me, so I just carried on. Okay, целиком и полностью. So I was thinking afterwards, subsequently, maybe целиком и полностью, maybe something like from start to finish is maybe what we would say in English if we wanted to convey that sort of idea fully, 100%. But again, if it's just fully, I think more than adequately covers целиком и полностью.
Сразу после революции 1917 года.
1917 revolution.
Lenin
and his acolytes
это весьма грубым по отношению к самой России способом.
did this in a way that was very violent towards Russia.
Okay, so this is a tough bit coming up here. Okay, it's always good to know what year the Russian Revolution actually happened. It's always good to know it was 1917. Otherwise, you're sort of you're trying to work out the year. It just saves you those few hundredths of a second or tenths of a second at any rate, if you know what year the revolution was in. Соратники. So what I said is acolytes. Now maybe acolytes contains a slight negative connotation that isn't perhaps there in Saratnik. I look, his comrades in arms perhaps would have been the best rendering. Certainly, comrade. I mean, I'm just looking here on multitran.ru. Certainly, comrades in arms has that notion of the comrade, the tovarish, which is obviously very applicable when you talk about the communists and the Bolsheviks back then. His associates, maybe again, was something to be sort of neutral. I mean, I think I did okay with acolyte. Again, maybe a slight negative connotation that didn't exist, wasn't there in the original, but. Nothing too disastrous.
By ripping away part of its own historic territories. Millions of people living there, no one asked them anything.
Okay, just a couple of interesting points there. Okay, so за счет отделения, отторжения от нее части ее собственных исторических территорий. So, I mean, okay, he uses two verbs here, doesn't he? Отделение, отторжение. I guess отделение, like separating by splitting it from. So I said ripping it apart, and I think that renders. That's a pretty good rendering of отторжение. It's got that sort of connotation, this rather violent ripping away. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Now notice how I started here. Okay, у миллионов людей. So I heard the у миллионов, so you can tell immediately. It goes straight into a genitive plural, у миллионов людей. So, but 9 times out of 10, you just you're safest just to immediately put it into the nominative, make it the subject of the sentence. I went with millions of people living there, of course. And then you hear the sort of main bit. What happened to the millions of people? Никто ни о чем не спрашивал. No one asked them. So when you hear that, the preposition, when a sentence starts with a preposition, be it k or u, you're pretty safe. In fact, not only safe starting with making the subject of the sentence, I would actually advise it generally. I think it will make your life easier.
Then, before and after World War II, the Great Patriotic War, Stalin joined Ukraine to the USSR and gave Ukraine lands that previously belonged to Poland and Hungary.
Okay, what have we got here? Накануне. So often you're taught, накануне, on the eve of, is the sort of is the full rendering of that word, on the eve of. But he's starting to speak pretty fast. He's starting to speed up at this point, and then you hear about the war. Okay, just before and after the war. I just sort of cut my losses. You could sort of say I cut my losses rather than getting specifically on the eve of, before the war, after the war. Now notice what I did here. Великой Отечественной войны, and that's why I called it World War II. Maybe I should just have gone on from there. That would have been one option, just not to have. I sort of backtracked it, but I repeated World War II, and I said the Great Patriotic War. That was a judgment call in the moment, because I think that the Russians want to hear you referring to that war perhaps as the Great Patriotic War. It just carries that extra bit of significance for the Russians. I think I could have, I think you'd get away with leaving it out. I think they would certainly, but I think they would prefer to hear Great Patriotic War rather than World War II, particularly under the current circumstances. So anyway, but that shows you a way you can sort of. I think I did that pretty smoothly. I said before and after World War II or the Great Patriotic War. It didn't seem like too much of a correction.
Stalin joined Ukraine to the USSR and gave Ukraine lands that previously belonged to Poland and Hungary.
And actually, I did pretty well. I pretty much got in everything there. He joined the Ukraine to the USSR. Присоединился, maybe he annexed. He united Ukraine. He made Ukraine a part of the USSR. The one thing I missed out, with the giving of the land, I didn't hear Romania. So I got 2 out of 3. So I got lands earlier belonging to Poland and Hungary. So again, with that speed and those conditions, without a text, again, pretty pleased with that.
Now, as a kind of compensation, Stalin gave Poland part of native German territory in 1954. Khrushchev, for some reason, took Crimea from Russia and also gifted it to Ukraine.
Okay, yeah, своего рода компенсация, as a kind of compensation, to make up for it. Исконных германских территорий. Again, I'm pretty pleased that I said native German territories. And then, again, was what happened in 1954. Here it's very helpful to know the history of the Soviet Union, certainly the Crimea, where Khrushchev, like he says, for some reason, took Crimea from Russia and gifted it. I think I said gifted. I could have said gave it. I wanted to get that idea of it being a present. So, I mean, Khrushchev, I think he was Ukrainian, and he pretty much woke up one morning, from what I gather, and decided we'll move Crimea from the Russian Socialist Republic to the Ukrainian Socialist Republic, a decision which at the time, I guess, didn't seem like a big deal. It was all still part of the greater Soviet Union, which was going to live forever. No biggie if this little bit of land, Crimea, is moved from one of its administrative units to another. And we all know what the consequences of that have been in history. But never mind, let's not get into the politics there. But that's essentially what happened. He just sort of, at the time, it was just a change of administrative units.
That's how the territory of Soviet Ukraine came into being. I want to pay...
Yeah, I sort of tried to be a bit fancy how the territory of Soviet Ukraine came into being, maybe how it was formed.
Special attention to the initial period of the creation of the USSR. For us, that's very important. Look at things from afar.
Okay, this isn't too bad. I noticed I dropped считаю. Again, he's going fast. So I think that when they say sort of I think, those sort of things can often be dropped. It's almost redundant because I just said, for us, this is extremely important. The fact he says, I think it's very important, really doesn't change much. So in that moment, he's going fast. Okay, just drop считай, drop the I think.
I would remind you that after the October Revolution 1917 and subsequent civil war, the Bolsheviks began building a new state. There were major differences among them.
Okay, Октябрьского переворота. Okay, so I think in English we call that the October Revolution, don't we? I mean, usually in English, переворот we usually turn into the coup or the putsch. You can say putsch, I think, after the October putsch. But I think just in English we have a tendency to refer to it as the October Revolution of 1917, subsequent civil war.
Stalin, in 1922, held both posts of Secretary General, General Secretary, and wanted to build things on the basis of autonomy, giving the republics and the future administrative units broad powers when entering the unified state.
Okay, now it's getting tough, all right? So talks about the two posts that Stalin held. Okay, now Генерального секретаря ЦК. Okay, so the Communist Party. We say so when it's the Secretary General. Don't get these two. So the Secretary General is the boss of the UN, but in English, so the boss of the Communist Party, it tends to always be the General Secretary. Now in Russian, it's the same. Obviously, they call the Secretary General Gensekretar OON, and the same sequence of words for the boss of the Communist Party. But so in English, we certainly say the General Secretary. I could have probably I corrected myself there. I could have probably gone on. It would have been okay. But it's when they're talking about the Communist Party, you want the General Secretary, and now, this other post that he held, I didn't get it out. I couldn't think of the best way of putting it, so then I just had to carry on just with the rest of the sentence. But I'm looking it up now, so it's called Commissar for Nationality Affairs. Seems to be the version they're giving in most sources for this Комиссар по делам национальности. So he's proposed building the country on the basic principles of autonomy, giving the republic. I think I recovered quite well because that sort of threw me a bit. Trying to give both Stalin's posts. And then I sort of recovered. Широкие полномочия, broad powers when entering the single state.
Lenin vetoed that plan and suggested making concessions to the nationalists, as he called them then, the independentistas.
Okay, so I was still trying to I was still piecing together the end of the previous sentence. I actually missed when he the word raskritikoval. So I heard, okay, Lenin did something to this plan. So it was, and then he предложил. So I heard that, he suggested doing something else. So it was a bit of an educated guess, let's say. So I said he vetoed that plan. So not quite right, but I think it was a fairly good educated guess. And then, okay, so he назвал независимцем. So, yeah, I don't know, I had a weird Spanish moment there, didn't I? I thought it sounded better to say independentistas, rather than, I think you can do that in one word. It sounds okay, actually. I'm not too disappointed with my attempt there.
Lenin's ideas of a confederate state with rights of nations to self-determination up to even independence were enshrined in Soviet statehood.
Okay, so I deliberately, again, государственного устройства, maybe statehood, I would again sound better. I just said of the confederated state. Lozung, I missed that word. Slogan, okay. About the right of nations to self-determinations, вплоть до отделения. So I said, I think independence. So отделение, maybe best word under the circumstances with, now with the time to think about it. Maybe secession, right up to the point of secession. That's when one part of a state breaks away from a bigger state, it's called secession. So I think, okay, independence, that was the best word that came to me in the moment. Separation, independence, but yeah, secession, bear that word in mind. And then we're enshrined at the heart of Soviet statehood, really положены. I think that was pretty good.
In 1922, there was a declaration on the creation of the USSR, and after Lenin's death, the Constitution of the USSR of 1924.
Okay, so here, this is a good coping strategy here. So now I'm really struggling a bit here. Были закреплены в декларации. So, I mean, the word they really want is, again, the enshrinement, закреплены. I missed it, and then so then I hear the word декларация об образовании. So I just said there was. Okay, that's a real, I'm in trouble here, but okay, just keep trying to get those important nouns out. Again, when you're in trouble, I find with Russian, focus on at least getting the nouns out. The nouns are more important than the verbs. You can say there was the declaration on the creation of the USSR. Now, if you hear the enshrine, but you don't hear the declaration, then there wasn't what was enshrined. There was the enshrinement of what. So the important word here is the declaration. That's what is the really important word in this sentence. So I got that out. And then, what's the quickest way of saying really the USSR? The USSR, 5 syllables. The Soviet Union, 5 syllables. Somehow for me the Soviet Union rolls off the tongue a bit easier. And you've got to sort of make that decision there, because okay, this is going to probably be repeated again later. I think he's talked about the Soviet Union before. You want to get clear in your head what you found, what's most comfortable for you to say.
Trying this also. Here immediately many questions were raised. First and foremost, perhaps the most important, why did any limitlessly growing nationalist ambitions around the edges of the empire, often arbitrarily giving these administrative units, giving them territory that had historically had nothing to do with them.
Okay, so I'm really I'm struggling here. Okay, there's no two ways about it. So I find this sentence really tough. This starting И первый из них. На самом деле главный, зачем надо было с барского плеча? So this threw me, this expression, с барского плеча, and I tried to, I didn't know it, so I just tried to carry on, and I was, I'm struggling to close off my sentence. You'll see. Now, what does barskого плеча mean? Well, after some studying, I think the best equivalent in English would be, why did they need to satisfy with such gay abandon? Now that's nice in English, all right. Imagine if you got that though on full credit if you were able to come up with that on the spot. Any limitlessly growing nationalist ambitions na krajnych bivшей imperii, around the fringes of the former empire. I sort of see that, this Zabarskova Piecha, it means like condescendingly casting down. But no, I think in English the best thing to say would be to satisfy with such gay abandon, just here, there, and everywhere. Well, you can have this and you can have that. That's the idea, I think, of Zabarskova Piecha. If you've got a better idea, please do. Maybe I've misunderstood it. But so if you've got a better idea, please do put it in the comments. And then, now with the benefit of hindsight, I'd probably say for this sentence, so giving to these newly created and often arbitrarily formed administrative units, the republics of the Union, huge unrelated swathes of territory. Okay, so the idea is that these units they created, these republics, were just sort of blithely given huge, great chunks of land, which historically had never actually belonged to them. That's a really tough. That's a really tough paragraph. Let's see how I did the last sentence of it.
And this is what happened with Russia. What's more, these administrative units.
And again, I was sort of hurrying up here. That's what he did to Russia. I caught that he'd said Russia. So I repeat, handing them over together with the population of historical Russia. So I guess that's his main gripe with the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Its structure, its geographical, the way it looked as a geographical entity.
Russia. What's more, these administrative units effectively were given the status and form of national state structures. Again.
Okay, so I'm starting to get back on the horse here. So, effectively, these administrative units were given the status and form of national states, государственных образований, state entities. Maybe that's the best rendering word for word.
And I asked the question, why was it necessary to make such generous gifts, which the nationalists themselves had never even dreamed of before, but also giving the...
Okay, so I split that sentence up quite well. Look, after мечтали. Okay, why give them such generous gifts that I get this ярые националисты. So, okay, I think I skipped the adjective there. I mean, when the pressure's on and the words are coming at you thick and fast, often the first thing to drop out are the adjectives. Now, if I was to give you, I think the best adjectives, maybe the most ardent nationalists, ярые националисты is a very good collocation with nationalists.
Republics, the chance to leave the state without any conditions.
Okay, so give the republics the right to leave the state without any conditions. So yeah, I think what I was really searching for the word secede on a lot of these paragraphs. Okay, выхода из состава единого государства. So I just I just play it safe. I just leave the state without any conditions. But secede is a good word under these circumstances.
Now, this may seem like madness at first sight, but there is an explanation.
After the revolution, the main job of the Bolsheviks was to hold on to power at any cost and at any price.
Okay, so now you can see I'm sort of recovering from that shower of punches I was taking the previous paragraph. So, okay, I dropped a couple of things. Na первый взгляд initially, but okay, I just said it was madness, непонятно, безумие. Okay, so I just synthesized that down into one word. It seemed like madness at first sight. Задача большевиков, maybe the task. I sometimes say the job for Задача. I think maybe the task for the Bolsheviks was to hold on to power at any price. At any price. Perhaps when he says именно любой ценой, but maybe that would have got over the meaning fully. You know, it's saying at with added stress, at any price.
They resorted to everything, to the humiliating conditions of the Brest peace at a time when Germany and its allies were even in a severe economic military position, and the outcome of the World War I was already almost decided, and they satisfied the needs, the wishes of any wishes of the nationalists inside the country.
Okay, so this is again got quite a bit of history coming along here. You want to know about the Brest peace, of course, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk that the Russians and the Germans signed, I think, in 1917. That's where basically Russia withdrew from World War I and surrendered a whole lot of land. So there, it's useful to have the historical background. Okay, I didn't say Kaiserskaya Germania. Okay, so he's specifically talking about the Kaiser's Germany. Again, I decided, okay, just Germany. I didn't have time to say Kaisers. В тяжелейшем военном и экономическом положении. I said I think they were in a severe economic military situation. Maybe the best word here is something like dire, woeful. Dire and woeful are good synonyms to have for a word like тяжелейший, which is a really strong word, you know. Outcome of World War I was already decided. Okay. Often when they say они шли на, you can see шли на удовлетворение любых требований. So it's basically that they resorted to. I think I get the word resorted to in there. So, you know, having this text in front of me now, I'd say maybe, you know, they resorted to satisfying any demands, any whims from the from the nationalists within the country.
Including the Lenin's principles of state building were not just a mistake, they were even worse than a mistake.
And again, so actually, well, yeah, I was again slightly behind here, so I missed this с точки зрения исторических судеб России. So in terms of Russia's historical fate and that of its peoples, the Lenin's principles of state building were not just a mistake, but как говорится, a lot worse than a mistake.
Say, after the collapse of the USSR in 1991, it became patently clear.
Okay, so that's a good, like, if something's really clear in English, obviously we say it's a good sort of, again, collocation to say something's patently clear.
Of course, the events you can't change the events of the past, but we need to at least talk about them frankly and honestly, without beating about the bush or any political shades.
Okay, so I'm getting back on track again here. Говорить прямо, честно, talk frankly, talk candidly. These are good sort of synonyms for that idea, прямо и честно. Без всяких оговорок. So yeah, without beating about the bush. And without, what did I say? I said political shades. Maybe a better alternative would be, in this context, without any political bias, maybe? Maybe without political overtones in this context?
Can only add the current political state trying
However, beneficial certain actions might have seen at a given time, none of these actions can be laid at the basis of statehood. I'm not.
Okay, so this is another very tough sentence. The critical word I missed here was соображения. I didn't hear that for some reason. Considerations, okay? Again, so looking at it now, I'd say perhaps I can only add that considerations of the current political conjuncture, climate, however effective they may be and beneficial at a specific moment of time, should under no circumstances be laid at the foundations of the basic principles of statehood. Again, look just with the benefit of hindsight, I think maybe considerations of political expediency. Again, it's the whole idea of how beneficial things may look in the moment, and then saying that they should under no circumstances be laid at the foundation of basic principles of statehood. The соображения, I mean, the safe word to go with for соображения is considerations. Конъюнктура, политическая конъюнктура, that's the political situation in the short term, in the here and now.
Pointing the finger at anyone, the situation in the country at that time, after the Civil War, before, was incredibly complex, critical.
Okay, so again, so I said, сейчас не обвиняю, so I'm not accusing anyone, so I think I did well there. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone. Again, the situation in the country before and after the Civil War was incredibly complex, critical.
To say that that's how things were. It's a historic fact. As I said, as a result of the Bolshevik policy, that's how Soviet Ukraine emerged, which even in our day we can safely call the Ukraine created by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin.
Okay, so again, this is getting quite complex. So, за полным основанием. Yeah, so I said we can safely call it, with every justification we can call it, by just went for just that one word, we can safely call it the Ukraine of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin.
He was its author and architect. This is fully confirmed by archive material, including the strict Lenin directives on the Donbass, which were basically jammed into the Soviet Ukraine.
Okay, so again, he's using this word, целиком и полностью подтверждается again. This is, again, maybe from start to finish. So I think I was just saying fully. Confirmed by archive documents, corroborated by archive documents, substantiated by, those are good, again, synonyms to have. Жесткие директивы. Here, жесткие is it, probably, like harsh, tough directives on the Donbass. And I think, втиснули в состав Украины. So I said, they were jammed into the Ukraine, squeezed into.
Have now raised. They have knocked down the statues of Lenin in thanks. No, that was the decommunization. You want that? That's fine by us.
Okay, so a couple of things I'd say here in criticism of myself here. So is he saying, okay, now they're grateful successors, посносили на Украине. So initially I said they built these statues of Lenin. And then I sigh, try not to sigh when you're interpreting. Did you notice how I went, they built these statues in Ukraine. Then I realized, okay, посносили, they've basically been knocking them down everywhere. So they've been knocking down these monuments, better than statues, monuments to Lenin for памятник. That's what they call decommunization. So посносили means they've knocked them down all over the place.
You want that? That's fine by us. Но не нужно, что называется, останавливаться на полпути. To stop halfway.
We're ready to show you what for
Ukraine that decommunization really means.
Okay, so I'm getting actually the words out here. the presentation, the delivery is a bit staccato. I'm under pressure here. I'm suffering.
Returning to the history of the Ishmata, I remind you, in 1992, in the old Russian Empire, the USSR was created in 1922.
Okay, I correct myself here. Do you see? I correct myself. Okay, there. I think that was legitimate. I didn't hear the I thought I heard 90, 22. Yeah, again. So you can do that. So I've noticed. Oh God, the USSR was created. So I realized, hang on, that's not 1992, is it? So okay, I correct myself and say 1922.
But life itself quickly showed that trying to maintain such a huge, complex territory, trying to govern it on the basis of amorphous federal principles was virtually impossible.
Okay, so I'm quite pleased with this. The only thing I'd say, this is a thing they like saying in Russian, «Sama жизнь сразу же показала». I say life has shown. I think that's more of a Russian thing to say. I think we would maybe say history. History has taught us. That's maybe what we would say in English. History has taught us. History immediately taught us. Or experience. Perhaps experience. Experience immediately showed us that maintaining such a huge, complex territory, administrating it on some amorphous, effectively confederal principles was impossible.
They were completely divorced from reality and from historical tradition.
Okay, so again, this is an expression he likes to use, this оторванные от действительности. I think they sometimes say оторванные от реальности as well. Okay, so I like with that to just say divorced from reality, detached. I think divorced from reality is stronger. And we'll do one more paragraph.
It's legitimate that the Red Terror and the swift move to Stalin's dictatorship, the prevalence of the communism, the monopoly of Communist Party in power, all the ensuing nationalizations were formalities that were announced, but there were no way to build a state.
Okay, so again, speaking very fast here and not having a text, it's very difficult. You're clinging on. I think I'm at least getting sentences out for the most part. I'm closing off the sentences. Okay, so here we've got закономерно, so legitimately, Krasny Terror, the Red Terror, when you had all the purges, I guess, in the 1930s. What other interesting words have we got here? Господство коммунистической ideology. Did I say the best word here is this, I think it was the triumph of ideology or the supremacy of communist ideology. So perhaps for this paragraph, you can say it's legitimate that the Red Terror and the swift переход, the transition to Stalin's dictatorship, the domination of the communist ideology and the party. So I actually start saying here, I just start talking about the party, okay? Rather than always saying the Communist Party, the party's monopoly of power, the nationalizations, and the planned economic system of economic planning, all that basically turned into a mere declaration, into заявлены, declared or proclaimed, but unworkable principles of statehood.
Power, all the ensuing nationalizations were formalities that were announced, but there were no way to build a state.
Okay, I sort of slightly paraphrased it, in fact. They were announced, better заявлены, declared.
No sovereign rights in reality were given to the republics. They didn't exist. In practice, what was created was a strictly centralized, utterly unitary state.
Okay, so было создано, so notice here I turned that into a what construction. What was created, and that just leaves me, that sets me up for whatever it was that was created. Okay, so maybe some people would have waited for the created. Some people maybe would have said, in practice, a strictly centralized, absolutely unitary state was created. But I like to, when I hear that Bill Suzna, I just like to get that verb out, and then I can focus. I don't have to remember. I don't have to hold it in my memory till the end of the sentence. So that's why I did that.
Stalin effectively implemented the practice, not Lenin's ideals, but his own ideas of statehood. But relevant changes to the founding documents, to the constitution, were never made. Lenin's principle of building the USSR was never formally reviewed.
Okay, so I'm doing okay here. Система образующие документы, yeah, so the founding documents of the Soviet Union. Those documents никогда they were не пересматривал, they weren't reviewed, revisited.
It seemed that there was no need in the event of a totalitarian regime. Everything that's how things went. On paper, things looked very nice and highly democratic. And
yeah, and so here, this last sentence, so it's like, by the look of things, судя по всему, it seemed that there was no need in conditions of a totalitarian regime. Everything was working fine. Внешне, I think I didn't quite hear that word. I said on paper. Bit of an educated guess. Yeah, so it's on the surface, basically. On the surface, everything looked nice, attractive, and even highly democratic.
It's great pity that from the basic, formally legal foundations that underpins our whole statehood, there was no timely resolving of the fantasies that lay under the state. And no one ever thought about what would happen in the future.
Again, this is very difficult. So yeah, it's a great pity that now, when I was interpreting, so I turn the базовых формально-юридических основ. Again, best to turn that into the subject of the sentence, the basic, formally legal foundations, на которых была построена. Again, I turn this, which underpinned, rather than saying on the basis of which was built. Okay, so here, that's a good, when they talk about foundations, основ, it's always good to have that word, that verb, underpin, okay, because it saves you having to do any gymnastics with these sort of words, these connecting words like on which, on the basis of which underpinned, на которых была построена, which underpinned our whole statehood. Не были своевременно вычищены одиозные утопичные. This is hard. There was no timely cleansing of the odious utopian навеяния революции. The revolution-inspired but utterly devastating or destructive fantasies for any country. Yeah, that's it's tricky. And as to the future of будущем, as was often the case before, no one thought about that. Is how I would do that. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Putin's statement, or at least the first, 10, 12 minutes of his statement on the 21st of February. If you, I'm going to put up I sort of recorded myself doing in the end about 23, 24 minutes of it, I think. The whole statement was about 50 minutes. Maybe I'll put up the full sound file of my full 24 minutes of that statement, and maybe I'll do a part 2. Maybe I'll do I don't know. I'll see what statement there is. I think he's going to be making a lot of. Putin's going to make, let's face it, a lot of very important statements probably over the next few months. So, as I say, fact is that's the vocab that he uses often tends to trickle down people further down the chain. So it's really important to keep up to date with what he's saying. If you've enjoyed the episode, please smash the like button. Please do subscribe and share the episode and the channel with your friends and colleagues. Please do put comments. Okay, I really would appreciate it when you put comments. Just something you've liked, a new expression that you've liked, tell me in the comments, or any other solutions for any words that you've heard. It's really good to get comments. Okay. And yeah, with that, not much else to say for now, other than that. Episode 117 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Until next time.